Welcome to episode 3 of Stories of Fatal Encounter, tracking the Long Island serial killer. This case is still an active case, and Rex Humerman has not been convicted at this time. He is only facing charges of the murder of 7 women between 1993 and 2010. Rex was married for 27 years to his wife, who has since divorced him since being arrested. They have one daughter together, and his wife had a son before they were married. Rex lived in the house he grew up in, and as a teen, Rex worked at Jones Beach in the summer of 1981 and May 1982 through 1984, which is right by Gilgo Beach. Recently, the Long Island police have uncovered a pile of women's clothes and handbags from 1980s to 1990s buried 2 feet deep in the sand just outside of the East Bathhouse on Jones Beach. So the women he is charged with is the Gilgo Four, and then which we covered in episode 1, and then Jessica Taylor, who's a 20-year-old that was living in Manhattan and went missing July 21st of 2003. On July 26th of 2003, her torso was discovered 45 miles east of Gilgo Beach in Manorville. Plastic sheeting was found underneath her torso, and her tattoos on her body were mutilated with a sharp instrument. More remains were found on March 29th, 2011, that matched to Taylor. Taylor was working in Washington, D.C., along with Manhattan as a sex worker. She was last seen working Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan between July 18th and July 22nd of 2003. Valerie Mack, 24, working in Philadelphia and working as an escort when she went missing in 2000. Valerie and Jessica were disposed in similar manners in the same part of Manorville. Mack was in the foster care system at an early age and never was reported missing. She also had a young son. Parts of her remain were discovered in Manorville on November 19th, 2000, but were not identified until 2020. Her body was wrapped in a garbage bag and dumped in the woods. Her hands, feet, her head, her foot, and hands were found April 4th, 2011. In 2020, officials determined the remains were the same person. May 28th of 2020, police finally announced the identification of Valerie. Family members had last seen her in the spring or summer of 2000 in Port Republic, New Jersey. Rex was finally charged with her death December 17th of 2024. And that brings us to Sandra Costello. She was 28 years old, living in New York City. She was killed November 19th or 20th of 1993. Her remains were found November 1993 by hunters in North Sea, Long Island, about 60 miles northeast of Gilgo Beach. 31 years after her fatal encounter, hairs found on her body linked to Rex, with her being the link showing he had traveled past Gilgo Beach and may have started killing people as early as 1990. Sandra Costello is also the victim that was assumed to be John's murderer until December of 2024 when Rex was convicted.
Well, what's interesting is that since you bring that up, they assume John killed Sandra Costello because the other two victims that John's accused of was in the same vicinity, but
And they were dismembered and wrapped
and killed the
in
same
plastic.
same way. Exactly. There's something that Thomas Spada, the past district attorney of Suffolk County, said. He said that most likely the person that killed those two victims, which was John, supposed to be John, most likely killed Sandra Costello. And he does make a good point because the three women killed in similar fashions and in the same area. So what are the odds that there are two different killers killing the same exact way? So he is right. But if this is true, that Sandra Costello is actually killed by Rex and DNA is linked back to Rex with Sandra. So how about the two victims that John is doing 50 years in prison for is probably linked to Rex as well?
Right. And not only that, with the Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack, the two of
Right.
them were in similar fashions as well as to the two girls that John is convicted of. So it does open more reasonable doubt on his case, like we discussed last time, that it should be reviewed, it should be looked at. And hopefully they will. But I mean, it's now been 2 years since Rex has been arrested, and they haven't opened John's case.
Which is amazing to me why Suffolk County is not opening its case. It makes no sense. I know his lawyer is actually filed multiple appeals to have them check the DNA that's at the crime scene. Now, again, to refresh your memory, and like how we did in episode two, the DNA that they have from John that linked John to these two women are his semen samples that they got from inside the women body. Now, but the DNA that's on the crime scene itself is not John. Is it not John, or is it they haven't tested it
There is two unknown samples from the crime scenes
from a
and from a
different
different,
man?
yes, including internal and like on her clothing. And then, like I said, there was a pair of overalls there that had that unknown male's DNA as well. But John's DNA was found nowhere outside of the vaginal swab that they did.
Right.
Um, there is hair samples that have not been tested on both of the victims that John is charged with. And seeing that that's been like the major link in the Gilgo 4 and Sandra, I don't know why they haven't at least attempted to test those hair follicles and see if they match Rex or Rex's family, seeing that some of the Gilgo 4 wasn't Rex's hair DNA, it was his daughter's and his wife's.
So, if you want to go a little bit deep, why Suffolk County is not, or FBI, because FBI is involved in this as well, you have to
No.
understand. Oh, they're not involved. The FBI is
No,
not involved in this case.
I said now. They're involved now.
Now they involved now. Yeah. Well, the FBI
I
is.
don't think the FBI was ever involved in John's, actually.
Right. The FBI is involved in Rex's case. So John's case has nothing to do with the FBI. So it's all up to Suffolk County. Now, but you have to understand also with Suffolk County. So the question is why they actually don't go a little bit deeper and check the DNA samples, like how they did the tons of murders that Rex is actually accused of. If they have DNA samples at the actual crime scene, how? And it's not matching to John. How does somebody else DNA, a man's DNA, and his overalls, don't forget about the overalls, is at the crime scene without that person being the murderer? What that person's doing there? And if the person's not the murderer that was there, that left their DNA at the crime scene, doesn't that person deserve to be pulled in and interrogated and asked questions? What was you doing there? You have a man that's serving 50 years to life in prison. It's possible that he's an innocent man.
It's
Why some
possible.
counties doing this? Now, the only thing I can think about is that regard to Thomas Sparta, and this is what happens when you have a corrupt district attorney in the office for that length of a time. Because every single if John actually gets released from prison because the DNA doesn't match, and it's proven that somebody else actually killed these these two women that John's accused of. Every single case that Thomas Sparta actually had in front of his plate is going to be questioned.
And it should be. I'm sorry, it shouldn't even take John to do that. The information we have on James Burke and the DA, every single
Right.
case the two of them touch
But
should be
you have to
checked.
understand, it can't be touched. In Suffolk County's eyes, they cannot first of all, they cannot
They can't
survive
afford.
multiple lawsuits from convicted felons that's actually not the right person that they convicted. This will actually bankrupt Long Island, Suffolk County, period, if this happened. And what's tragic about this, because it's pretty much now it's coming into politics. You have not only John, but every single case has to be actually retooled, reinvestigated, redone all over again. And all these people that's in prison can actually or did prison time can actually sue Suffolk County. It's kind of tragic because
How many lives are destroyed? Not just the victims of these murders, but how many lives are destroyed by this corrupt county?
well, I'm not saying the whole county is corrupt. I'm going to corrupt district attorney that basically was the gatekeeper to the county, and the corrupt chief that was his
But they had
lackey, pretty
minions under
much.
them as well.
Right, right. And listen, I'm gonna tell you something. There's nothing wrong with cops. We respect cops. We respect our district attorneys out there, our lawyers that actually fight for crime. We respect all of them. But in this situation right here, that when you have corruption, we can't respect that. We can't respect that because again, you have multiple people going back to Burke and Sparta's connection on that original case with the little boy, those other teenage boys that served time and actually got overruled by appeal that they actually was not the murderers for this crime. So going back then to now to John, how many other people in the middle suffer the consequences on behalf of these people's hands?
Too many.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So jumping back into Rex, we're going to start with the evidence they found against Rex outside of just the DNA, because we did talk about that quite a bit. But when they searched his house after his arrest, they found 300 guns in his house. They also found a soundproof room with a secret door and a gun vault, is what he called it. It was a gun vault. There was blood, DNA, and planning documents on one of the 422 devices they removed from the house. This planning document is kind of the main reason that they determined that Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor were his victims, along with Sandra Costello. They went back to reinvestigate these cases due to this planning document. This planning document included a list of what he had listed as like a flow chart, problem supplies, DS, which they assume is called was dump site, targets, list of problems including things like DNA, how to get rid of tire tracks, removing fingerprints, hair, fibers, supplies that he would need, as in
Wow.
booties, hairnet, gloves, etc.
So he's actually teaching himself to become more a sophisticated killer. That's what he's
Yes,
doing right
this
now during
this
this
is
time period.
this document is basically a how to get away with murder document. For the problem of the tire tracks, his solution was to change the tires, like switch out the
Right,
tires after the murder.
right,
He had one where it was like recon locations, make sure there was no video cameras, making
right.
sure to set up the like staging area, holding area,
So
burn his gloves.
so you have to understand as a listener right now to this podcast, you have to understand what's going on with this man. Rex is what, 61 years old right now? 60 or 61. Um, Now going back to what we originally discussed at the beginning of the podcast, where they found at Jones Beach recently, they found
64 right
uh,
now.
64 right now. So they found buried 2 feet deep woman's pocketbooks, which is assuming that they actually were taken from the killer and buried. But we're not exactly sure whose pocketbooks
There was
it is.
there was multiple along with women's clothes dating looking as old as the 80s. Like the clothing stuff was from as old as the 80s, but we have no victims in the 80s.
Right. So, or partly we do, and then there's never linked to Rex, or partly we do in different locations. Who knows what was going on prior to 1993 with Sandra Costello and these other victims that happened at that time period? Usually, if you look at the history of serial killers, usually a serial killers start killing in their 20s all the way through until a time that they actually get caught, they killed, or whatever it is. Now, in 1993, if he's 64 now, In 1993, this is 32 years ago. So he's 32. So all his 20s while he's working in Jones Beach, what was going on? And something was going on if he's actually hiding. If this is him, if this is him, it's not proven to be him yet.
No,
If he's
they're linking. Yeah.
burying,
Oh, yeah. They're linking the items found on the beach to the Long Island serial killer victims. They haven't released how, but they said that it is part of the case. So those belongings that they found were victims in this case. So I don't know if it was like their IDs were in the bags, but those items are linked to this case. Whether Rex is the person that killed them all, because again, he has not been convicted,
convicted, yes.
but
He hasn't
those,
even went to trial yet.
right.
Let's put that in the air. He hasn't gone to trial yet. He's accused right now of being a Long Island serial killer. Well, the problem I have with this, right? So the whole point I'm trying to make in this whole situation right here is that you're dating, they're dating this back to the 80s. Now, there's no victims in the 80s, but there have to be victims if he actually had their belongings in the 80s, somewhere down the line. Now, you fast forward to more recent years when they the Gilgo 4 is 2012, I believe, or 10?
No, they were found in
2000,
2011.
2011.
So they were all
Got it.
they were all earlier than that. Um,
So, and Rex, when he got caught by the FBI, that was working for Suffolk County Police, side by side, he got caught multiple times on surveillance buying burner phones. Um, what else he was doing? He bought burner phones.
yeah, so when they removed, well, before we get, well, okay. Um,
Let's get to it. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
So, when they
we'll
move
jump
what?
back to burner phones, but
Yeah,
to the device that because I mean, they had removed 422 devices. Some of those were burner phones,
right,
which we'll get to here in a minute. But part of the other documents they found was like cleaning the body and removing all trace evidence, removing tattoos. And as I said, I think it was Jessica. Her tattoo was, yeah, it was Jessica. Her tattoo was mutilated, so it was less recognizable. So like
so
this is why after they found this document on his
right,
computer, they went
right,
back and researched that area and re-looked at those girls and because now the MO has changed. For a long time, they were looking for someone who was just laying girls out because the Gilgo Four were laid out. They were fully intact bodies. They were not dismembered. Um, so with this document, they realized his MO has changed, which opened the door to looking at other victims. And as we know, when they found the Gilgo Four, they found many sets of remains in that area. I think there
right,
was 10 others outside of the Gilgo Four. And Jessica Taylor, part of her body was there, and part of her body was in Manorville.
right,
So they linked that he was dumping them in dumping the bodies in different locations. So that's where the MO like really changed. And then they went back to research his house. And then they started looking at the burner phones that they found
right.
that he had bought in other people, like different names. He had email addresses that were in different names, not his. So fake identities. But also on the devices, they found some really disturbing Google searches, down to looking for escorts, rape porn, torture porn, young girls or young children as young as 10. So like
Well,
just
all right,
really disturbing searches.
going back to what I was trying to bring up, the point I was trying to bring up before. So 2011 is when they actually found
They've
out what's going on Gilgo Beach for the most
Yes,
part.
because the first one was I think '07. I think it was '07 was the first girl, one of the
No,
first
well,
to go
again,
missing.
so Rex, all these documents, give me 1 second right now. All these documents that Rex was caught with is he is trying to become a more sophisticated killer. So the point of what I'm trying to make is if he's actually figured out to become more sophisticated killer, what happened from 2012 till he actually gets arrested? There's no bodies during this time period. You're telling me that he's going to cold turkey and not killing anyone? Or is it that he actually murdered more people and more sex workers, and we don't realize it because he found a better way to dispose of their body?
I agree.
Remember,
I also think what's weird about the whole scenario is these girls that were dismembered went missing before the Gilgo Four. Why are they dismembered and then the Gilgo Four are laid out? So it makes me question, was he going back to visit those girls and do stuff?
most likely,
That's why they were fully intact. Or
right?
was it to keep them intact to throw off the MO and not link the victims together, which was a big part of the chaos of this case, is that you have these girls dismembered, you have these girls that are fully intact. They're not the same person and led kind of a goose chase, but really they were. But you're right, most serial killers don't just stop until they're caught or end up in jail for something else or meet their own fatal
Well,
encounter.
that's exactly why I'm saying right before he's apprehended, he's actually still going to cell phone stores and buying burner phones. That means
Hmm.
he's still active. It's right in front of your face. He's still active, but you just
Right.
don't, you can't find, you don't know where the victims are at. There's still things going on in these 11 to 12 years that he's roaming around on the streets,
Right. And
you know,
and that's the thing. So like we know that he owned a timeshare in Vegas in 2003.
right,
We know
right,
that he owns a house in South Carolina in
right,
2021. His mom lived in Virginia since 1994, and there's
right,
documents of him making trips back and forth to Virginia. And then he
right.
was a regular visitor to Atlantic City and a regular visitor to upstate New York for hunting, and he has family up there and links to Florida. So it broadens the speculation that maybe there's more victims, they're just not in New York or not in Long Island. They're in all these
Exactly.
other places.
Exactly. I mean, was there victims found in Atlantic City that resembled the Gilgo Four shortly after he got apprehended or shortly before?
Yes, but that's not the start of the possible victims that I have
Okay.
found while researching this case. I was able to find victims dating back to 82, which would match
Wow.
the timeline of the clothing and personal items found in Jones Beach. And remember, he worked there. So he was very familiar
Unbelievable.
with Jones Beach. And Gilgo Beach is attached to Jones Beach. Like they're
Right.
divided by name, but they're actually like you can
It's the
walk
same
from one to
beach.
the same beach. So
Hmm.
I mean, so we're going back. The oldest victim that I could find that police have openly said and discussed that could be related. They have not, none of the possible victims that we're going to talk about from here on out are confirmed. He's not charged with them, etc. But the cases are similar. He had access to the area, so it is possible that these could be his victims, but we may never know because they need the evidence to prove it. There was Tina Foggy. I don't know for sure how to say her last name, but she went missing January 31st of 82. She was only 19 years old and she was from Brentwood. She was last seen leaving Hammerhead nightclub on the Sunrise Highway. She was last seen around 3 a.m. leaving the club February 1st, 1982. Her partial remains were found in several plastic bags in North Bay Shore, which is only a few miles from the Gilgo Beach.
So now
Part
her body was cut
parts.
in different pieces,
Yes, she
parts of her
was.
body.
Yep, and put in plastic bags. Assuming because a lot of these part victims' parts have been scattered. So I'm assuming that the other parts of her remains were probably never found because I mean we're talking 82. That's a long time ago. And I don't know what much about
Well,
decomp, but
a, a, a long time before Sandra Costello. You're talking about 1982 to 1993.
mhm.
That's 11 years. So you have an 11-year gap from one victim to another victim. Now, we're not saying that 1982 victim is one of Rex's victims. We're not saying none of these women are Rex's victims because he hasn't even went to trial yet. But what we are saying is that you have a similar murder, similar style, similar MO
Same location,
from the same
similar location.
similar locations, and and that person that killed those women in 93 could be most likely the person that killed this girl in 1982, but
Right.
no one actually put these two together. So you have 11-year gap from 82 to 93, and then you have another 12-year gap from 2011 to 2023, which I believe that's when Rex got apprehended. So you have over 20 years of space over here of a person that could actually have been killing more and more people we not even aware of. We just haven't found the bodies yet. It's a scary thought, a very scary thought, because he's not stopping. He's not showing signs of stopping, and
No. And
the surveillance system, the surveillance camera in a cell phone store that show him still buying a burner phone. Like I said, still shows that he's actually doing what he's been doing for all those years.
right. And when we put together this whole timeline of the possible victims, there's not really a gap. There is a gap at the end,
Right,
in the last few years, but I
right.
mean, from 82, it's pretty much consistent almost
Well,
every year, if
the
not a couple a year, if they all fit
The
together.
only reason the only reason there are gaps is on the law end of it because we haven't found any more bodies yet. That's the only reason why it's a gap.
Most likely.
That you have those two gaps.
All right, so our second victim that is a possible victim is Alicia Reynolds. She was in Virginia, March 2nd of 1996. She was driving to meet her mom to go shopping and never arrived. Her car was found about 50 miles away from the mall. There was no traces of Reynolds, and there was a napkin left in her car suggesting she had car troubles. The car was inspected, but there was nothing wrong with it. At this time, there was a man that was signaling women to pull over and telling them something was wrong with their car, offering them rides. In one case, he attacked a woman but let her go. Police believe this was practice runs working up to killing Alicia. The killer was coined the Route 29 stalker. 2 months after Alicia was found missing, her body was found 15 miles in a wooded area from where she was last seen. The sketch of the suspect in this case looks like Rex, and he has connections to Virginia. Like I said, his mom moved there in 1994, so 2 years before this. Was this him practicing picking up women outside of sex workers? After he murdered, Alicia was murdered, there was no other attacks in this area, and this Route 29 stalker disappeared.
Now, for a person to actually stalk and possibly kill a person, it's not going to be a one-time thing. Most likely, they gave into their urges, and but just for them to disappear from the scene and you don't hear from him at all, that just shows that the person's not from the area. He actually came to the area for a period of time and disappeared from the area afterwards.
Yeah. And the sketch is eerily close to what Rex looks like at a much younger age, of course, because I mean, we are talking now
And you have to
1996.
and you have to understand Rex has a distinctive look to him. So there's not so just think about it. Um, you're telling me this is all coincidence where he's seeing his mother at this time period of his life in the same exact area. There's a sketch of the guy that's a stalker of the town that looks exactly like Rex, and then he comes into town and disappears after um, the
Alicia.
victim is found. Alicia is found.
Yeah. So it's just interesting, like were these practice runs? Like, yeah, he may have killed in 82, but maybe that was his first because he would have been about 21. And
Right,
then he was like, okay, how do I keep doing this? And then he was just kind of practicing picking up these women.
right.
I mean, we don't know, but he had links to Virginia. And if you Google the sketch of the Route 29 stalker, you will see the resemblance between Rex Humerman and that cold case sketch artist drawing.
Right.
So next we jump to Tanya Jackson, or in a toddler. Parts of Tanya and her toddler were found on the bodies of Gilgo when they found the bodies in Gilgo in 2011. They have recently named them and identified them. Previously, they were known as Peaches and Peaches Baby. They went missing in June of 1997. Tanya was dismembered and remains were left in Hampstead Lake State in Lakeview, and more remains were found in Gilgo, like I explained. And the toddler was complete, found in Gilgo. Or Tanya was wrapped in a plastic garbage bag and crammed inside a Rubbermaid container. They were just identified in April, so they haven't released a whole lot of what about them other than Tanya was part of the military and was disconnected from her family. And that's why they couldn't identify her sooner. Jacqueline Smith, August 7th, 1999. She was 16, last seen in Brooklyn. She left her home around 9 p.m. to visit a friend and never came back. In June 20th, 2000, an unidentified female's torso was found by 88th Street in the Rockaway Beach. The torso was found in a plastic bag wrapped in tape. She was later identified as Jacqueline. So that one was 1999. Andre Isaac, he is one that I kind of would say doesn't really fit, but as we get on, there is a possible connection with him, and we'll explain that when we get to that. But um, he was a cross-dressing male. He was 6'3", went missing November 2002 in Brooklyn. His torso was recovered in Rockaway, not far from Jacqueline. He was also wrapped in a plastic bag. Isaac's skull and extremities were found in 2003 and was determined he was shot in the head.
Now, this is the only one that kind of stands out most of all because it's a transvestite man. He doesn't fit the MO. He gets shots in the head, but
But
his body is found right next to the other victim.
he was near Jacqueline. He
Hmm.
was dismembered. The difference with him too is most of these other victims are small, petite females. This is
Right.
a bigger guy. I mean, 6'3" is a bigger guy. Um, was that is that why a gun was used? He is more, to me, he's more questionable of if he could be a victim, but with him being so close to the area. And again, we have another connection later that we'll jump to and explain why I put him in here. It's just it's similar enough that it's worth looking at. It doesn't necessarily mean it
Absolutely.
would, but is it possible that was also into that kind of world too? I mean, or was it an easy victim, like had access? We don't know. We do know that Rex had many guns, so it isn't completely out of the realm that, I mean, Rex is a big guy too, but 6'3", maybe it didn't go the way it planned and he ended up using a gun for protection. And
Maybe.
so, but that one's, like I said, we have more to discuss when we get
We
further into
freelance
victims.
this. Like really, reality. What we're doing right now is actually filling the blanks. Where was Rex during those missing years? Now, it actually shows that very similar deaths and cases all over the country, pretty much, could actually, and at the same time period that Rex was there, could actually been Rex the whole time.
And had access
So,
to.
had access to. So, there's no such thing as a serial killer stops and goes to a 10-year hiatus and comes back afterwards. It
Unless they
doesn't
go to jail
exist.
for something else.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Okay.
And Isaac's mom believes that he's a victim of the Long Island serial killer, which is another reason he's put in here, is she believes he's one of the first, which, as we kind of determined, we don't think that. But so that is another reason it is out there on the internet as a suggestion. So I put it on the list because you can find it if you Google it, that he could be considered a possible. But like I said, none of these are in Rex's list of people charged. So then next would be Misty. She is a 25-year-old. She disappeared in Las Vegas, and like we said, Rex had a timeshare in Vegas.
right?
Um, she went missing March 12th of 2003. Her torso was found wrapped in black plastic bag, a bed sheet off of Route 159 north of State Route 160, just west of Vegas. Partial remains were found in the desert on a road leading to Red Rock Canyon. The Vegas ones, there's going to be a few of them. They are re-looking at the Vegas cases because he could have been there due to having the timeshare. So these
Right,
are actually being re-looked at. So these are the closest ones at this point that could be linked to Rex because of his timeshare. Jody Brewer, she went missing in Vegas in August of 2003. She had gone out that night. Jody's torso was discovered wrapped in cloth and plastic 2 weeks in the Mojave Desert. And Rex's timeshare was only a few miles from the Vegas Strip. And where Jody went missing, she was a sex worker. She was using drugs. He was only a few miles from where she went missing. And when Rex was arrested, Vegas did review 266 cold cases between 2003 and 2006 to look at possibility of Rex's victims. So these Vegas girls are part of those 266 cases. Lindsay Harris was 21. She disappeared from her home in Nevada, May of 2005. She was last seen making a deposit to her bank at the south end of the valley. Her rental car was abandoned in the desert, and she was found a couple weeks later by a group of children, and her remains were actually left on Interstate 55 in Illinois, which is weird that someone drove with remains from Nevada to Illinois. But again, we are finding parts all over the place throughout Long Island. Are we going to throw it? Someone obviously did it. So is it possible that he drove back from Vegas to Long Island and
Well,
dumped her body?
obviously he's actually trying to make it complicated for officials to try to track down the bodies, and also it seems like he's at whoever the killer is, and we just throwing it out there. And partly it is Rex because it makes sense because the MO is very similar. It seemed like he was having it was some type of entertainment that was going on that no one found him yet. I mean, if we actually go back to 1982 to 2022, you're talking about a 40-year span. If this is true, a 40-year span of somebody that's killing nonstop on a consistent basis and not hasn't been caught at all or even suspected for 40 years. That's a long stretch of killing
Very,
people.
very long stretch. All right. And then we have Jessica Foster. She went missing March of 2006. She was 21 in Vegas as well. She left her home that she lived with her boyfriend at the time. He said she left for a dental appointment and never turned back up. All of her belongings were missing besides her makeup and her hair dryer, which is a little bit weird. But she wasn't reported missing until April 9th of 2006 by her mom. Her family has ordered a private investigator and learned that she had been sex trafficked in Canada to Atlantic City to Vegas by a man named Dorel Vesta. She thought they were friends and he had invited her to a trip to Florida, New Jersey, and New York in April of '05. They had traveled to Nevada and it was supposed to be a short trip. She had two jobs lined up in Canada, but she ended up moving to Vegas in 2005, and her family had no idea she was working as a sex worker. She told her sister she was going to leave her boyfriend and was going to live with a friend and stated she was packed and ready to go. So that may explain why all of her stuff was packed up. There was no
Right.
activity on her phone, credit cards, or bank accounts, and she left behind 20K in her bank account, but she has still never been found.
Wow.
So that one they really looked into the sex trafficking aspect, but there was no leads in that either. So but she is one of the cases that the cops are interested in Rex for. Next, we dive into the Atlantic City, which was 2006. These were four women whose bodies were found in a drainage ditch behind a motel in November 20th of 2006. All of them were face down, facing east, about 6 feet, 60 feet apart.
Right.
They were all clothed except having their shoes and socks removed, and they were all strangled to death. And all four of them were sex workers. These are very similar to the Gilgo Four, and Atlantic City is somewhere that Rex was documented to be multiple times. There was a dancer from the Soleto strip club in Atlantic City that stated she had seen Rex there at least 3 times.
Probably scoping his victims. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah,
Trying to eye his next victim.
right. And she actually said that he had booked a private room and then wanted to talk to her and was trying to convince her to meet him outside of the club. And she had a really uncomfortable feeling about it, didn't meet with him. She also had seen that he had a Tinder profile in Atlantic City. Also, the parking lot attendant had recognized Rex, and also various people among the boardwalk, like store clerks and stuff, had recognized him coming and going from Atlantic City over a period of time prior to COVID, before COVID and after COVID. So the
Well, you have to understand, Atlantic City is not, if whoever's listening to a podcast, Atlantic City is not New Jersey and New York City or New York is connect to each other. It's just driving from one place to another place. It's share the same border. So Atlantic City is pretty much from Long Island, where Rex lives at, or New York City, where he lives at, or where he works at. Um, it's only like a 3 hour drive to go
Right.
there.
So, I mean, he could have taken a bunch of day trips to go there. And the thing about these four women is they're not even sure when exactly they went missing.
Right.
So they don't have a date of the last time they were seen. So we don't know if they were killed weeks apart. I mean, they think it's relatively close together. So maybe he was making a day trip once a week or a weekend trip and did, but regardless of all four, similar to the Gilgo, they were all laid out a certain distance apart, fully intact. The theory is that he laid them in the drainage ditch because the water would have washed away any evidence. This Atlantic City, these four women, is one that they have investigated to see if there's any link to Rex. Um, so those and the Vegas ones are very much on their radar to try and connect if possible.
So
Uh,
this, so the dates you just gave right now, is there any more victims?
yes, we're not done.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, so
It's sad. It's not even funny, but
it's
go
not
ahead.
funny. Um, so we have another Jane Doe, which they named Cherries because similar to Pete, she had a tattoo of cherries. She is still unidentified. In 2007, she was stuffed in a black suitcase that washed up on the shoreline in Westchester County, March 3rd of 2007. She is estimated to be about 35 years old at the time of her death. 2 weeks after the suitcase was found, her left leg and foot washed up in the rocks of Cold Spring Harbor in Suffolk County. And a day later, her left leg washed up in Cove Neck, which is Nassau County. So she is actually found in three different places throughout. They believe that the suitcase was dumped on Long Island North Shore before floating across during a storm. Cherries is eerily similar to the Peaches case, Tanya Rush, in '08. We haven't talked about Tanya Rush, but she's next. She went missing June of 2008, 23rd of 2008. So Peaches, which is Tanya, Cherries, and then this Tanya, those three are very similar, and they assume that those three are connected, but they have not identified anyone. for any of those cases. And then we jump to Aaliyah Bell in 2014. She is still considered missing. She disappeared November 25th when she was only 18 from Rock Hill, South Carolina. She left behind her cell phone, wallet, and other belongings. Investigators have reached out to South Carolina with this case due to the fact that Rex and his brother have property just outside of town. And also, this property is where they found Rex's green avalanche. So, this is literally the same town that he lived in that this girl went missing from.
Right,
Um,
right, right. What are odds? What are the odds? Yeah.
right. Then we have Julia Bean. She also went missing from South Carolina, June of 2017. She was last seen in Red Bay Road on June 31st, being left behind money, her purse. She also left some drugs laying on the table. Her daughter was about to graduate high school and had tickets for her, but she never showed up to the ceremony. She was reported November 18th of 2017. Rex is about 2 hours from where Julia lived, and her daughter actually stated that Rex was the man that she had last seen Julia with. She had even texted Rex, who was using a different name, and stated he had a lake house and she could come party with him and that he was going to marry her mom and kind of this whole like almost like they were dating kind of scenario. But Julia's never been found. They haven't found her body, nothing. She's still missing to this day. And then brings me to the last possible victim that we found, which is Asian Doe. He was found amongst the bodies in 2011 when they found Shannon in the Gilgo Four. They believe he was murdered between 2001 and 2006. They have not identified him. He was wearing female clothes. Also experienced a very violent death, may have been a sex worker, and they estimate his age between 17 and 23. So he kind of goes back to Isaac, as in he was also wearing the opposite gender's clothes. So maybe this is the connection between the two that maybe Rex is into, or the Long Island serial killer is into this, or was it that he didn't know that it was actually a man when he picked him up? Because the drawings, like they have done sketches to try and determine Asian Doe if they've done a female and a male and like a Vance Progress picture. And it could be possible he didn't know that it was a man if he was dressed in female clothes. Not sure, but that's where the extra connection that maybe this is something he was dabbling in as well. So that brings us to basically covering 1982 to 2017 when you put in all of the victims, including the ones he's charged with, and possibly a timeline that we've created. So at
Yeah.
this time, Rex Humerman is awaiting trial, expected to start sometime in 2026. As of now, he will stand trial for the 7 victims, and we may see more to come before the trial date takes place. But in the end, we are grateful for Shannon's mother being an advocate to push to find Shannon, leading to uncovering all the other victims in the area of Long Island. Unfortunately, justice has not been served for her, and hopefully they will continue to look into her case as well now that the end of the corruption in Suffolk County has ended.